Wolf of Fantasy Sports back with the DFS Wolfpack for NFL Week 8. I want to give a shout out to Fantasy Labs, one of my favorite sites for DFS research. They cover NFL, NBA, MLB, golf, NHL, all under one price. They have optimizers, projections, ownership percentages. Cubs fan 333 took down the Millie Maker, first and second place. Looks like he mass multi-entered the tournament. That's $3,000, $20 times 150 entries. If you look at his lineup, that took down the Millie, Russell Wilson, Ezekiel Elliott, LaShawn McCoy, Will Fuller, Lockett, Paul Richardson, Jimmy Graham, Lamar Miller, and the Cowboys defense. So if you're looking at game theory, what he did was he stacked up the late game, faded DeAndre Hopkins, went with Will Fuller and Lamar Miller to be contrarian, and then he faded Doug Baldwin, who a lot of people paired up with Wilson, and he went with Lockett, Paul Richardson, and Jimmy Graham, which is a great strategy. So props to him, and he took the two best running backs on the board and found value with the receivers and the defense. So incredible lineup, 247.88. And he gave a shout out to Fantasy Labs, let them know that he uses the site. So Fantasy Labs, look into them. Highly recommended. Moving on to week 8. Looking at the quarterback position, Deshaun Watson, 8,100, in a prime matchup versus Indianapolis at home. One of my favorite plays on the board. It's going to be real popular. This kid, everybody doubted him versus Seattle. Came in low owned, killed it, and now just his ownership's going to be through the roof, and that reflects his price at 8,100. So other than Deshaun Watson, let's look at some other guys. Russell Wilson, versus Washington. Someone in play here. Games at home, 7,300. Drew Brees versus Tampa. I like that. 7,000. Superdome. Tampa's giving it up on the pass. Drew Brees should have a really good game here. Dak Prescott at home versus Kansas City. Kansas City's another team that's been giving it up, passing yards. So you can pass on Kansas City. And Eric Berry's still out. Could be out for the rest of the season. So in this matchup, they've been soft on defense. So unless they clean it up, they got a game tonight. It's Monday. They got a game versus Denver. We're going to see how their defense holds up against Simeon, and that'll let me know what I'm going to do with Prescott at 6,700 because that's a good price. Alex Smith, 6,500 on the road versus Dallas. I don't mind that play. We're going to see how he's playing tonight and see what's going on, but he's someone in play. The price is a little up, 6,500. Now you got Cam Newton up against Atlanta. Now Cam's been up and down the whole season. He's had really good games or mediocre games. So it's either 10 points or 35. That's what you're going to get out of Cam. And you'll know right away, too, what kind of day Cam's going to have. So Cam Newton at 6,300 at home versus Atlanta. He's somewhat in play, but that's a GPP. That's not a cash game play. So know what you're getting into here. I might throw him in a $3, but that's it. So Matt Ryan on the other side of the ball at Carolina, 6,200. Hasn't looked right to me all season. Suffering from that Super Bowl loss. I don't think they recovered. And they're just not playing good football. The offense, they're not putting up the points that they were putting up last year. Last year, they led the league in points scored per game. It's just, they're not doing that. Looking at Wentz up against Denver at home, 6,100. I don't really like that play. It's going to be a tough task for him. I'm going to fade that. Mariota, I'm fading him versus Baltimore, even though he's at home. Winston versus New Orleans. If he's healthy and practices all week throwing the ball, 5,800, he could be in play. So be sure to monitor his progress throughout the week in practice. Cousins in Seattle. Don't like this play at 5,700. I like the price. It's going to be a tough game for him coming off the loss. I think he has a bad day here. Jared Goff versus the Giants at 5,500. I don't mind it, but I don't love it. Won't have any exposure to him. Quarterback I'm looking at 5,200. is Jacoby Brissett versus Houston. He's no Russell Wilson, but I think he put in work, and I think he could put some points on the board. So I think he's good for about 17, 18 DraftKings points. At 5,200, he's in play. I'm all for Dalton versus Jacksonville. It's hard to pass on them. They're #1 in the league. They got great corners. Their defense is just getting better. They just picked up Darius. It's going to be a tough day for Dalton. I'm off Eli, and I want nothing to do with Bortles here. Now, Trevor Siemian at 4,700. We're going to see how he plays tonight. He's going up against KC, Monday Night Football. He's going to be coming off a short week here versus Philly on the road. Traveling to Philadelphia, 4,700. It's going to be risky, but you can pass on Philly. We're going to see how Siemian looks tonight. And if you want to take a GPP flyer on him at 4,700, he could get you 20 DraftKings points. If he gets his weapon back, Sanders, Guy Thomas, he should be okay here, but it's real risky GPP flyer pick at 4,700. Looking at the running back position, you got Ezekiel Elliott, 9,000. Ezekiel Elliott might get suspended for 6 games. Got to keep up with that. Should find out sometime this week what's going on. So for me, I'm not paying that price for Kansas City at 9,000. I'm just not paying it, especially if you're going with Watson. You're not going to be able to afford Zeke. Same thing with Hunt. Hunt's going up against Dallas. Decent matchup here, 8,600. I'll probably have limited exposure to him at that price. Fournette practices all week for Cincinnati. He's 8,400. He could be a good fade here. He's been a monster all season. One of my favorite players to watch. Monitor his practice. See what's going on. If he practices fully all week. If I can find the value, I'll throw him in a lineup or two. Looking at Gurley versus the Giants, 8,100. He's in play. That whole offense moves through Gurley. You can run the ball on the Giants. I'm not worried about the opposition rank. The eye test shows me you can run the football on the Giants. If they use Gurley correctly, he's been pass catching the football. He's in play at 8,100. Mark Ingram versus Tampa. You could run a bit on Tampa, 7,600. I think Ingram's in play. Him and Kamara both make great plays. And Kamara is $1,300 cheaper, and he's a pass catcher. So in this situation, I might look to Kamara over Ingram. But both could have a good game here. I'm off Freeman. I don't like that offense right now for Atlanta. I'm off that. Looking at McCaffrey at home versus Atlanta. 6,500. That's a GPP play. I'm not looking to roster him this week. Lamar Miller saw over 20 attempts in Week 7 versus Seattle. And he was productive. He caught a touchdown, passing touchdown, and he had a rushing touchdown. So if you look here, 21 attempts, 54 yards, and a touchdown. 3 targets, 3 receptions for a touchdown. That's what I expected out of Miller this season and last season. So if they give him the 20 attempts versus Indianapolis and give him, 3 targets, I'll take that at 6,200. That's a good play. You could throw him in there with Watson. So looking at Chris Thompson in a tough matchup versus Seattle at 6,100. He's in play, but there's some risk attached to that. Looking at Doug Martin versus New Orleans. If Winston's messed up, the shoulder's still giving him trouble, Doug Martin could be seeing a lot of attempts versus New Orleans. Could be in play here at 5,800. In the dome, look to him, Doug Martin, someone in play here. He's in my player pool. Adrian Peterson, if Carson Palmer was playing, I'd say he's in play at 5,600 versus the worst run defense in the league, San Francisco. That's real risky. I hope people play him because I think I'm going to fade Peterson and hope the game gets away from him. And I'd much rather play a guy like Carlos Hyde at 5,200 over Peterson, just due to the circumstances on that Arizona team. So some guys I miss, McFadden, Morris. If Zeke's out, they could be in play, but it's a tough matchup. I don't like them. And plus, they haven't seen much playing time. DeMarco Murray, 5,400 versus Baltimore. Monitor his status, someone in play here. Him and Derrick Henry. So if Derrick Henry gets the nod, if he starts, DeMarco's out, 5,000, definitely in play here. He could pass catch, former Heisman winner. Looking at Joe Mixon versus Jacksonville, you beat Jacksonville running the football on the ground. I really don't like Mixon here. He had one of his best matchups last week. He only got like 12 DraftKings points. So versus Jacksonville, their defense is just getting better and better. They just picked up Darius. I don't know if he's playing just yet, but Jacksonville defense is no joke. It's going to be a tough day for Mixon, even running the football. So looking at, I'm off Anderson. I really don't like Coleman here. Collins, I'm off that. Really don't like anybody down below. You got Marlon Mack versus Houston. That's a tough matchup. Frank Gore. That's pretty much it. Smallwood versus Denver. It's a lot of risk attached to that. You can look at Darkwa for the Giants at 3,800. It's probably as low as I'll go. So if you want to take a shot on Darkwa, real risky. Wide receiver position, DeAndre Hopkins, 9,200. After seeing what he did to Seattle, 9,200 price tag is crazy. I think a lot of people are going to pair him up with Watson, which makes sense. But I'd much rather go with Fuller for the discount at 7,000 and hope they just don't need hope they don't need Hopkins, and hope they just get a huge lead. And in this lineup I'm building right here, my game theory is, we've seen this before. I forgot which game it was, but Watson and Fuller hooked up for the touchdowns, and then they built a lead and they just ran the ball, killed the clock, and Hopkins ended up with like 9 DraftKings points. I believe it was week 4, if I'm not mistaken. So looking at Watson, you got Miller, you got Fuller at 7,000. Now Fuller's had a crazy amount of touchdowns for as many targets. Let's see what he had here. So he saw 8 targets, 5 receptions. He had 2 touchdowns in this game. So I really like Fuller here, but we're going to go through the rest of the wide receivers. So Hopkins in play, just a high price, 9,200. It's going to be hard to put Watson, Fuller, and Hopkins in a lineup and get good value around them. So looking at Julio Jones, I'm off him versus Carolina. Mike Evans versus New Orleans, I like that play at 7,700. If Winston's good to go, Evans is good to go. Looking at A.J. Green versus Jacksonville, no way I'll touch that. No way. Michael Thomas versus Tampa Bay, definitely in play at 7,200. Really like him a lot in this matchup. Tampa Bay gives it up, and Michael Thomas should have a really good game here. So I'm going to be looking at the pass catches for New Orleans. Looking at Baldwin, I'm off him this week versus Washington. Tyreek Hill versus Dallas, definitely in play at 6,700. Somebody that'll be in my player pool. Looking at Dez Bryant, 6,400 versus Kansas City. He's in play, and his price isn't too bad at 6,400. So look to Dez. Kelvin Benjamin versus Atlanta. I don't love that play all that much, but he's in the player pool at 6,200. They're going to be throwing the football. I don't think they're gonna win running the football. So Benjamin's in play. Looking at D. Thomas, 6,000. Up against Philly, he's in play as well. Fitzgerald, I'm off of him versus San Francisco. Great matchup. They got the worst corners in the league, but who's throwing the football to Fitzgerald? That's what it all depends on here. So 5,900, I just don't like it. Without Carson Palmer throwing the football, I'm off Fitz. Deshaun Jackson, good play here at 5,500 versus New Orleans. Look to him. He's seeing 7-8 targets per game. Funchess, 5,400 versus Atlanta, could be in play here. Keep an eye on him. Sanu versus Carolina, 5,300, coming off a good week. I'm off Jeffrey due to the matchup. Ted Ginn Jr. in play, 5,000. If you can't get up to Michael Thomas, Ted Ginn definitely in play. He's seeing 5+ targets per game. And one of my favorite plays here, running it back on a Houston, Indianapolis, is T.Y. Hilton at 4,900. That's a crazy price. Really like that. T.Y. Hilton at 4,900. I'll probably have him 100%, and just my whole week will depend on it. I think he's gonna think people are going to realize the value at 4,900 trying to pay up for Watson, and they're going to play T.Y. Hilton. So I really like T.Y. Hilton. I really like Ted Ginn too. I'm going to throw him up in there. Looking at the other wide receivers, Crowder got a lot of targets. And I'm mad too because I've been playing him trying to pick spots, and he hasn't done anything. And then the week I get off him, he goes off, puts up 20 DK points. So Crowder 4,900 versus Seattle. I really don't love it. Aguilar, I'm off that. P. Rich versus Washington. He could be in play here because I think they're going to look to shut down Baldwin. Looking at Rashawn Matthews, I'm off him. I'm off Lockett. But I do think Richardson and Lockett are in play. Those receivers, it's going to be hard to pick which one has the good game here, but I could see one of the receivers getting a touchdown. So looking at Cooper Kupp versus the Giants, someone in play at 4,500. Doxson versus Seattle, that's risky. Robert Woods in play, and Sammy Watkins. Cooper Kupp, Woods, and Watkins. I could see one of these receivers having a really good game. I'm going to have to figure out during the week if I want to use one of these guys and which one I'm going to play. But these are three guys I'm looking at: Cooper Kupp, Woods, Watkins. I'm off John Brown due to the quarterback situation. Hearns, I'm off that. Decker, I'm definitely not playing. It looks like Decker and Mariota don't have a connection, so be careful rostering Eric Decker. I learned that a few weeks back. I'm off of Pryor. Fowler could be in play here if Sanders is out, so look to Fowler, 4,000. Macklin versus Tennessee. We got to see the status of Joe Flacco, but Macklin could be in play if Flacco's back. So look at him at 4,000. Willie Snead is not getting the targets. Be careful with him, 3,800. That's risky. Goodwin versus Arizona could be in play here at 3,800. Marquise Lee versus Cincinnati, that's risky. Grant versus Seattle, that's a cheapie right there, 3,500. You got Moncrief versus Houston at 3,200, which is crazy. He could be a play that catches a touchdown, gets like 5 targets with a touchdown, and goes like 3 catches, 56 yards, and a touchdown for 3,200. I could see that happening. So Brissett, if you want to load up with Brissett, Moncrief, and Hilton, I mean that's a cheap stack, and then you run it back with the Houston players that are high priced. That's crazy. You could make that work. I might do that on a few GPPs. That's it for wide receivers. Looking at tight end. Ertz, 6,800. First Denver. You beat Denver running the football and with the tight ends. I just really don't like Ertz at that price, 6,800. I need value. Kelsey versus Dallas, somewhat in play. They got Sean Lee back, so it's going to be a tough matchup, but Kelsey's always in play for me. Looking at Ingram versus the Rams, I'm off that. Jimmy Graham versus Washington at 5,000, that's a great play. Looking at Jason Witten versus Kansas City, he's in play at 4,600. He could catch a touchdown, maybe four catches. Jack Doyle, 4,300. As you can tell, I really like this Indy-Houston game. I like both sides of it. I like Jack Doyle here at 4,300. He's seeing the targets, and he's catching the football. 4,300. Him and Jimmy Graham are like my 2 favorite tight ends off first look. Vernon Davis, someone in play here at 4,100. Croft versus Jacksonville at 39. I think that price is too much. You got Hooper. That's okay play. You got Kittle versus Arizona. Ed Dixon versus Atlanta. Ryan Griffin versus Indy, 3,000. Not seeing that many targets though. Saw 2 targets, saw 8 targets the game before that, 4 and 5. So he's a risky play. AJ Derby versus Philly, 2,900 if you want to punt. Fleener versus Tampa, I really don't like that. OJ Howard versus New Orleans, 2,700. That's a risky play too. Saw 2 targets, 6 targets, 3 targets. He lit up the Bills. So they're going to try to use him, and people are going to forget about him. He's going to be wide open for them touchdowns. You got Mercedes Lewis. That's risky. And that's about it. That's as low as I'm going to go. Probably I'm going to have a lot of Jimmy Graham and a lot of Jack Doyle. Moving over to the defense, you got the Jaguars up top, 3,800 versus Cincinnati. I like them. I don't know if they're my favorite. But looking at the defenses, if Joe Flacco's not playing, Titans could be in play. But at 3,700, I'm finding the money for the Jags. So I like the Jags. I like the Texans just a little bit. So I like the Jaguars, the Seahawks. The Saints could be in play depending on the status of Winston. The Eagles are in play. And we'll know tonight, too, when Simeon goes up against Kansas City. If he's looking real bad, I might just load up on the Eagles at 3,300, especially if he doesn't have Sanders. San Francisco defense, 3,200. That's crazy. Versus Arizona without Palmer. Oh, man. You can look at the Rams, 3,100. The Ravens stand out to me a little bit. Tennessee looked really bad their last game. So the Ravens here. Maybe the Panthers. Atlanta hasn't really done much. Panthers could step it up. So for me, I'm probably going to have to pay up for defense. It's going to be the Jags and the Ravens that I'm looking at. Jags, Ravens, Rams. So the Jaguars, the Ravens, the Rams, and the Seahawks. And possibly the Texans. Got to look into that more. I do like some weapons on Indianapolis. So I got to dig into the research and figure out who's going to give it up and then just make my play. But as of right now, let's just lock in the Jags, right? That leaves you with 5,000 remaining for these three positions. And you can take Watson, Miller, Fuller, Hilton, Ted Ginn Jr., and the Jags. So if I lock in one of these tight ends, let's say I roll with Jimmy Graham, right? Can he have 3 good games in a row? I don't know. We're going to see. But let's say I lock in Jimmy Graham. He's 5,000. I got 5,000 for a running back and a flex. So I could take one of them wide receivers from the Rams, like a Sammy Watkins, a Woods, a Cooper Kupp. And I could lock in like a Joe Mixon and running back, which I wouldn't versus Jacksonville. But, I mean, he's somewhat in play. You got to consider him at that price. But just mix it up. Find a running back around 5,000. Probably going to be Carlos Hyde. You lock in a Carlos Hyde here, right? Take a chance on him. Now, my flex spot, I'm left with 4,800. So who am I looking at? I'm looking at Aguilar versus Denver. That's risky. I'm looking at Richardson, 4,700 versus Washington. Okay. Could look at him. Lockett. Cooper Kupp, 4,500. Right? One of the pass catchers here for the Rams versus the Giants. I could even run it back with 2 tight ends. Jack Doyle, 4,300. Robert Woods, Sammy Watkins. So that's just some ideas of what I'm going to do this week. Good luck in your contest. DFS Wolfpack, hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, if you want to join the DFS Wolfpack League. Let's get to this money. 1.